in the last video, what we did was we pulled out these switches right here and we rebuilt them and then we reinstalled them. But actually what I did was when I pulled out the two that I had there, when I was going to find rail to solder in some new rail, I found two switches that I had set aside just for this purpose. I had decided I wanted to change this. This was a number 4 right, and I wanted to change it to a Y switch. And what it does is it gives me an interesting look when the train goes through it, as you'll see in a second here. So I did that. What I had to do to make this happen, though, was I needed to solder in a bunch of extensions. That's what I did right there. Now, can you tell that that is two pieces of brass rail soldered into a nickel silver Y? Because that's what it is. That is exactly what that is. What you're looking at right there is exactly, you can see clearly that that is a brass snap switch right there. Right here, that is a nickel silver Y, and I soldered in some rail. And the other thing I did, as you can tell by the notches, I used some Fast Tracks PC board ties. And I did the same thing over here. Some brass rail soldered in, some PC board ties to hold it engaged. And here's one here. So what I did was I put the rail joiners on, soldered them onto this side. Then I soldered a PC board tie on the rail joiners right near the end to really hold it engaged. And I left just enough, and then I used some ox guard so that this joint here is not soldered. The rail joiners are soldered here, and they are soldered to this PC board, but they are not soldered to this snap switch. Down here, this snap switch is, I'm pretty sure that's a brass one. Or is it? I don't know, man. It's hard to tell now. I think it is a brass one, though. These rails here are scrap rail, and they are brass. Once again, at the end, I soldered in brass, and I used PC board ties and soldered them to that to keep it engaged. As you can see here, take a look at these joints. See how they're a little bit expanded? Right there and right there. Actually, this one, we could go a little bit like that, just in case. Oh, too far. Anyways, I leave joints in there. Why? Because and here's a joint over here. And then look at this bent. Look at that bent piece right there. These two switches here don't even align properly. And neither does that. None of it does. And none of that matters. Because, one, I'm using code 100, which gives me the ability to be more, I can be looser with my track work. Like I said before, I'm not ballasting this track. I'm going to flock it. If you don't know what flocking is, find a video where they repair G.I. Joe's head. Then you'll understand what I mean when I say flocking. This is an industrial park. And so let me give you a quick overview. What are we doing here? All right, so we got some tracks here that come around. Okay, the main industrial park lead is this track here. This is, see all those switches down there? That'll be a bunch of industries. at each one of those. And this is the main lead, and it's also a passing track. Now this third track back here goes to a big industry. This third track back here. This track, if you were to stretch out this layout, this track could be going like straight that way. It represents a long spur that ends in, look at that, it's a compound yard. That's another reason why I wanted this Y here. I really like compound yards. My favorite yards are compound yards. What is a compound yard? It's one that doesn't have a ladder. What it has is switches on the end of switches. That's the easiest way to say it. But anyways, I've got a Y that splits into 2 tracks on each leg, giving me a total of 4 tracks. And this whole thing holds something like 30 cars. And I'm going to tell you how big it is. So that is a 4x8, or that is a 2 foot by 4 foot handy panel right there. And we're using roughly 1-2 tiles of it. So this is 6 feet by 2 feet long. And so in 6 feet, take a look, I've got, at one point here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tracks before I get to the middle. Whoops, before I get to the middle of the board. Now, yeah, that's about right. Middle of the board. And they're not as tight as they can be. Those suckers can be a lot tighter together. So let's see what happens. I've got a little train here staged, and he's gonna bring in some box cars down here, and he's going to put them on this track. We'll call that track 1. Okay, I got that switch and that one. Okay, switches are aligned. Now right now I've got this in DC, and I got to make sure it works in DC, and it's got to be straight up DC, no common rail, before I convert it to DCC. So I have a little panel I made here, a temporary panel, so I can cut power to different sections. All right, let's give them a try. Okay. So he's going to go down. Let's watch. All right, you made it in. Let's bring him out again. Did you just see how fast that was? In case you missed it, let's watch him go full speed again. Oops, man. I have a little catcher back there, so I'm not smacking couplers. Now he just made it across that track with these box cars, 2 of which happen to be Bachmans, through that track work pretty much at full speed. Let's flip this switch and see what happens. That radius is much tighter. Let's see how he goes through my track work back there. You gonna make it? Oh my Lord, look at that. He made it. But that track work is so crappy. There's no way you could make it through there. You know what? You can break the rules and you can bend the rules as long as you at least know what they are. See that joint right there? I did that on purpose. I happen to know that this wall changes temperatures a lot. And as you can see, I use particle board on purpose. I'm not saying that you should do it, but I do it. Okay, let's see if you can make it in to the other section. Oh yeah, by the way, this is brass track back here and nickel silver. Remember that mix? Brass track and nickel silver. Okay, there he goes. He's gonna go in. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, and by the way, I haven't cleaned that track in a year. Remember that? And I'm not taking it easy on him. He's going pretty much at a speed that will get you banned from most train clubs. Are you kidding me? You can't do that. You can't use brass track and nickel silver and mix metals and no, listen. Here's the thing. Okay. This in code 100, your track doesn't have to be perfect. Code 100, which was made for kids to put a circle on the carpet, is extremely forgiving. That's number one. Number two, see that inside loop right there? That's 18-inch radius. I will put a tunnel motor on there. I've had the 86-foot boxcars on there. These things were made to be used on here, and if they are assembled properly, they will work. This is why I like code 100, because when this track looks like it's got weeds growing through it and there's standing water everywhere, it's not going to matter that it's code 100 as far as looks go. But for operation, code 100 is very, very forgiving. Now, if you're making a fantastic diorama, I suggest you not do that. You need to use the code 83 and the code 70. That stuff is much more precise, and as such, it requires precision track work. I don't need precision track work here. What I need is for my locomotives and cars to be able to negotiate this track work without derailing. And it's okay that it is not perfect. I'm telling you, if you look on satellite map, you look at some industrial parks, you wonder how they get any trains around at all. But they do. So there you have it. Now, once again, I have mixed brass and nickel silver. Brass, and different kinds of brass. Some brasses are really yellow brass. Some is like gold colored brass. And different types of nickel silver. Here's the thing, remember this. Everything else being equal, brass is superior in that it has a higher copper content. Higher copper means better conductivity, means better data. Downside, it tarnishes. Now that used to be a big problem. See this piece right here? Have not cleaned it since it was put in over a year ago, and it still works. No stalls, no problems. The reason is I coated the rails with OxGuard, which prevents oxidation and conducts electricity. Works on my nickel silver. I don't worry about cleaning it that much. When I do clean it, I replace the coating and I put more OxGuard in. You see this line of switches right here? Number 4, they're brass, they're nickel silver. I think that one of them is steel. These right here, I scratch built these, and they're brass. I don't know. Should we give that line a try? Actually, I didn't even have to take that locomotive off there. I can just cut power, which is why I made that. So we can cut power to that line. Let's go ahead and put this guy. This is my test locomotive. You know what that is? You know what that is right there? Well, it's a safety hazard because somebody left the door open. But other than that, that is an Athearn blue box. Old school blue box metal side frame, no flywheel SDP 40. Possibly the most notorious locomotive ever made for derailments. We're going to give them a try. Across these bench built number 6. No, these are more than number 8s. Trying out various materials right here. That might be plastic. Insulated plastic, some PC board that I milled on the milling machine. Okay, non-powered frogs. And then we got toy number 4 switches of all different makes. And then they're not even nailed down. By the way, that's the other thing. See this? Not nailed down. I don't glue my track. I nail it. And the reason is, as you just saw in the last video, I took out that section and it's not the first time I've taken it out. I've taken it out to redo it a couple of times. When you glue it, repairing it is hard. And I'm not ready to say this is the way it's going to be forever. Okay, so we got all these number 4s, and then a number 6. And then we're going to go through the 18-inch radius and see if we can make it. See if we can do this. You gonna make it? Not too fast, just to show that he does not going to stall out. I'm not cleaning any of that track since I ox guarded it a year ago. Okay, let's bring him back. We'll hit it full speed. If you know anything about these guys, they are. If there's any trouble, they will find it. Oh my God, he just went down to the workbench. Good Lord. Let's bring him back here. There it is. I knew that was going to happen. There is a spot here where if you leave the workbench at full speed, we will skid and I will have to shim that. But anyways, he made it through the number 4 section. Oh yeah, nothing soldered. I don't solder anything. Only things that are soldered are my little extensions. And otherwise, I generally do not solder rails anywhere unless I absolutely have to. I ox guard them instead. That is the new way of doing it. Ox guard instead of solder. And you know what happens when you have a hard winter? Doesn't wreck your track work. Plenty of expansion joint. Alright, that should do it for now. That's 20 minutes. That's pretty good. Later we'll try some other stuff.